Despite, in spite of, although, even though, what's the difference? Have you ever thought about these tricky structures? They actually have the same meaning, but the structure is slightly different. So today I'm gonna show you step by step what each phrase consists of, what kind of structure it is followed by. Of course, we will have a lot of examples. We will have some small practice part at the end of this video. And well, I hope these sentences will help you write better emails or communicate in a more fancy way at business meetings or during a small talk. Of course, remember that below this video you have a link to download this PDF with the summary of this class, with the exercises. So you just need to subscribe to my newsletter in order to receive this PDF. And if you're already my subscriber, remember that each time there is a new video published, you will receive this notification with this PDF inside the email, so you don't have to subscribe each time there is a new PDF to be collected. Okay, are you ready? I hope so. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, the first phrase on our list is despite. And actually you have two most important structures after despite. The first one is that we use despite with a noun. Or you can also use this gerund form. Well, gerund form is simply this verb with the ing ending, okay? But as usual, examples will show you best how to use this structure. Example number 1 with this noun form. Have a look. Despite the crisis, our business is doing just fine. Despite the crisis, it's a noun, right? Despite the crisis. Of course, you can stop the video if you want to practice your pronunciation. Repeat after me. Despite the crisis, our business is doing just fine. Another one. Now let's have a look at this gerund form, so this verb with the ing ending. Despite being ill, I decided to attend the meeting. So you see, it's kind of showing this contrast. I was ill, but still, I decided to attend the meeting. So based on that, we create the sentence, despite being ill, I decided to attend the meeting. Despite being ill. So this to be verb with the ing ending, this is called gerund form. Of course, here you could also use a noun and you could say, despite my illness, and that would be a noun. I hope this one is clear. However, please remember that after despite, we never put despite off. It's a mistake because we say in spite of, but despite something, okay? Of course, in a minute, I'm going to show you this in spite of structure, but for the time being, remember that there is no of used with this despite structure. And now there is one more case. Remember that you can also use a normal sentence, a normal clause with despite, but you need to add this kind of phrase, despite the fact that. Okay? And then you can continue with a normal clause. Example, despite the fact that prices are getting higher, our business is doing just fine. So you see, whenever you want to create a more tricky sentence where we are not really able to use a noun or this gerund form, remember you can always say despite the fact that, and you can use a normal sentence. However, it's quite long, isn't it? So if it's possible to use a noun or a gerund form after despite, I recommend that you use it. I hope this one is clear. By the way, pay attention, the fact that phrase can actually be used in different contexts. For instance, you know, I don't like the fact that you're complaining so much. I don't like the fact that. Nie podoba mi się to, że. So this to, że in English could be the fact that. You could also say, the fact that you've been working here for so many years doesn't mean that you can just tell people what they should do. So the fact that you've been working, to, że tutaj pracujesz. Okay? So remember this to, że is also the fact that. And now that's enough when it comes to despite. Now let's have a look at this in spite of structure. Right? But please remember that the meaning is exactly the same and you will have exactly the same structures like in the case of despite. But you need to remember that it's in spite of and the other one was just despite something. Okay? I would say that in spite of is a bit more formal. So if I were you, I would use despite more often. So you can just choose one version, there is no point using all of them. And now let's have a look at some examples. So in spite plus noun. In spite of financial difficulties, we've hired 5 new employees. So you see, despite financial difficulties, but in spite of financial difficulties. I hope you get the idea. And of course, we could also use this gerund form with in spite. We could, for instance, say, in spite of having financial difficulties, we've decided to hire 5 employees. Or in spite of experiencing some financial difficulties, we've hired 5 new employees. So to sum up, in spite of or despite can be used with a noun, or with this gerund form, this ing ending, or we can also add despite the fact that, or in spite of the fact that as well. And actually here you can have a look at this example with in spite of the fact that. In spite of the fact that we are struggling financially, we've hired new employees. So you see, these two structures work exactly the same, despite and in spite of. However, now we will have a look at this although and even though structure, and they are simply followed by this normal clause, a normal sentence. I suppose you use this one most often. Let's have a look at some example. Although she has lots of experience, we've decided to hire the other candidate. Or even though she has lots of experience, we've decided to hire the other candidate. So I suppose this one is quite easy. You just have a normal sentence after although or even though. Of course, you can also put it in the middle of a sentence. So you could really say, we've decided to hire the other candidate, although she has lots of experience. Okay, so it can also be put in the middle of a sentence. And now we have one more phrase structure, I suppose, which is used in this informal spoken language. Let's have a look at it. And this one is simply though. And now, when do we use it? So like I've said, it's quite informal. It's used in speaking mostly, and it simply means kind of but, kind of however. So it's also about expressing this contrast, but pay attention, this though is usually used, in most cases I suppose, it's used at the end of a sentence. Have a look. You know, your course looks great. I can't afford it though. So it's like, your course looks great, but I can't afford it. But here, this though is put at the end of the sentence. So your course looks great, I can't afford it though. So I hope you get the idea. And now maybe one more example with though. My holiday was amazing. I didn't enjoy the meals though. So it's like, my holiday was amazing, but I didn't enjoy the meals. But here, though, at the end of the sentence, my holiday was amazing, I didn't enjoy the meals though. So I hope you get the idea how all these structures work. Of course, remember, you can go through this short theoretical class once again, or you can simply collect the PDF with the summary of all these structures. Below the video, you can find the link to just subscribe and receive this PDF. And now I've prepared just one small, practical exercise. However, it's going to be very short because I don't want this video to be so long. So, are you ready? Let's have a look at it. What we will do in this exercise is that you have two sentences and you're supposed to paraphrase them. You're supposed to express this kind of contrast using all the expressions that we've discussed today. So, despite, in spite of, even though, although, though. Of course, you can use different structures. I will try to guide you through all of them, okay? So firstly, I want us to create this sentence with despite and in spite of, but I want to create these sentences firstly with this gerund form, so with this verb with the ing ending. So if you want to stop the video now, think about the answer. So this sentence is supposed to be paraphrased using despite, in spite of, plus gerund form, ing ending. Let's have a look at it. In spite of having no experience, she was hired. Or despite having no experience, she was hired. Of course, you can change the order. You could also say she was hired despite having no experience. So here we've used this gerund form, this verb with the ing ending, having, right? In spite of having or despite having, no of here. And now I want you to create a similar sentence with in spite of and despite, but this time I want you to use a noun, okay? So stop the video and think about the answer. Okay, let's check it. In spite of her lack of experience, she was hired. Or, despite her lack of experience, she was hired. And again, I suppose despite is a bit more common, so if I were you, I would just focus on using this despite structure. So we have a noun, lack of experience. This is a noun. I hope you're with me. Now let's have a look at another way of paraphrasing this sentence. So now I want you to use this in spite of and despite with this the fact that. I guess this one should be quite easy. Stop the video. Okay, let's have a look. In spite of the fact that she had no experience, she was hired. Or despite the fact that she had or has no experience, she was hired. Of course, you can change the order. You can say she was hired despite the fact that she has no experience. And now I want you to create this sentence with although and even though. Very easy structure here. Stop the video and carry on once you come up with the answer. Okay, let's check your answer. Although she had no experience, she was hired. Even though she had no experience, she was hired. Of course, you can change the order as well. She was hired, although she has no experience. I hope you've enjoyed this small practical exercise. In the PDF, you will find a few more sentences to be paraphrased like that. So I really recommend that you download that PDF and you just practice using these structures. Once again, they're really useful. I really recommend that you use them in emails. So despite technical difficulties, we are forced to cancel our meeting. Such a sentence sounds quite fancy, doesn't it? Of course, let me know in the comments how it went, if you've enjoyed the video, and perhaps there are still structures that you're struggling with. I could possibly record some video for you, so let me know what you would like to see next. And again, I recommend that you download this PDF because there is a lot of summary there, a lot of useful tips. So I hope you will use this PDF to just fix your knowledge, verify your knowledge, and I suppose see you in the next episode. Cheers!